Okay, so put the recording on. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the second VIVENTOR Peer-to-peer Webcast. This time, last time we had Lex from Atlantis and Bernard, our blogger, a blogger from Austria, joining us. And here we have today Nikita from Kviku, Russia, and Björn. Did I say your name correctly?
Yeah, very good.
Björn from Germany, a volunteer investor who has been investing with VIVENTOR for a while, and also some other platforms, and has agreed to join our discussion for the second in a row peer-to-peer webcast. The point of these webcasts is to get to know how our loan originators are doing, what is happening in general in the peer-to-peer industry, and of course answer the questions that are burning on our investors' minds, and to show what is happening also on the VIVENTOR side. So thank you guys for joining me today, and I will be moderating this call, and also my colleagues here from VIVENTOR are present as well. I don't know if you will be able to see them, but just in case, Algimantas Padegimas is our CMO, and Arvydas Žilinskas is our public relations representative. And guys here will just be helping us technically to switch the screens, the slides, so that we can see the questions and as well come back to the discussion as well. And to start, I would like to maybe first of all give a little bit of introduction or an update what is happening on VIVENTOR side, how we are doing as a platform right now, what are our daily things that we're doing right now, and then maybe ask as well to our guests today to introduce themselves and tell about their background and how they were doing, and then we can go to the question part. Since last time we spoke, we have been continuing to work from home in Lithuania, where most of the team of VIVENTOR are. We still have full-featured, so to say, quarantine. Mostly everything is closed, and we are continuing to work from home. Business continues as usual. We see still quite some withdrawals happening on the platform, and we also see on the bright side we start seeing new investors coming back to us, and also some recurring investments happening again. So our, let's say, outstanding portfolio has seen some drops in the latest weeks, but I do hope that this was caused mainly by the short-term let's say panic from investor side, and it will turn out to be into understanding of the business as usual, and we can come back to operations as normally we would. Also, as you probably have noticed, since last time we introduced quite a few features to our products and to the way our investments work right now in the platform. Mainly I'm referring to the funds in transit feature, which we already announced in the last webcast, and also the loan extensions feature, which we just released a few days ago. So just briefly telling about them. So funds in transit feature is basically a thing that we had in mind for a while already, but we decided to implement it faster than we previously wanted to implement it, to move it ahead of development schedule, so to say. So it basically makes it so that all investments are reflected on the platform as real as they happen, at the same reality as they happen on our bank account. So all the cash flows that are moving between the investors and VIVENTOR and loan originators and VIVENTOR are now completely reflected for investors. So if a loan originator hasn't paid for some repayments that he announced to us upfront that he will be making to our investors, then the investors will see this amount as funds in transit. This means that investors will not be able to withdraw those funds until they have arrived on our bank account. So this is This is the main logic of funds in transit. The good side of it is that investments are now completely, the cash flows are completely reflected between our bank account and the system of VIVENTOR. And maybe what has raised most concerns about this feature is that some investors see and asking us how long these funds in transit will take place, and if they will be getting some reimbursements for or some fees or interest for the time if the funds in transit takes longer than is normal and is needed to make a transaction. So our answer is yes. We are working as well on an implementation that all delays from normal payments and normal cash flows from loan originators to our investors would be added to the would be subject to extra interest, because money should always be at work, and money put into VIVENTOR is not money that you put into bank account just to keep it there. It's basically all investors want the full amount of their funds to be employed as much as possible throughout their relationship with our platform, and we aim to ensure that. Another good suggestion we just received today from one investor, and we are now considering maybe we can also find a way to implement it, was that we could reuse the funds in transit that investor is awaiting from one loan originator by allowing him to reinvest those funds in transit into loans on the platform of the same loan originator. So if, let's say, Björn here has invested into Kviku and he sees that 100 euros is funds in transit from Kviku, Björn could choose to invest into other loans of Kviku by investing these funds in transit immediately, and in turn postponing the funds that are needed to arrive for him from, let's say, next week to next month. So this way you could make sure that your funds in transit are always employed. So it's not mixing with other loan originators. It's just your relationship as an investor with the same loan originator. So it should be doable from technical side. We just need to figure out a way how to do it properly so that all the accounting is done right and all the legal agreements are done right, and that everyone is happy. But this is just one good idea how our investor community can help as well us to find new suggestions to improve the business. So thank you to whoever wrote this this idea, and also if other investors who are listening and watching this webcast, if you have other good ideas of how you see we could make our platform better, safer, more open, transparent, and maybe even profitable, make sure to write us. We are definitely looking into all requests and are considering each one of them. So thank you very much for your support and ideas so far, and keep them coming. So so this is about funds in transit. Another big update we did was on the loan extension side, and I believe it will also receive some comments from our investor community. But we must say that the reality we are facing right now is not the one that we faced every day, and the situation is definitely not ordinary right now. And it means that some countries are even implementing a countrywide delay of repayments and even interest for some loans, and we cannot not reflect this absolutely anyhow to the loan originators that are doing business with us. I would believe that as an investor, as any investor, but maybe we can discuss it later today with you, Björn, as our investor. But I would believe that any investor would be if he believes in the long-term performance of a loan originator, he would agree that it is okay to allow for some loan originator to have a delay in repayments rather than to put their cash flows on so much pressure that they would even consider going into default, because their whole or large share of their portfolio is now also postponed because of this coronavirus situation. So yeah, so that's the reason why we are implementing also this loan extension feature, which basically allows us to reflect the situation between the loan originator and the borrower, and loan originator and investor. So that if investor is buying a particular loan, and if the loan has been extended, so the extended period will be reflected now for the investor as well. So this means as well that the extended period will include interest, and your money will be at work always. So just the conditions on when you will receive your money or your funds will be delayed, and that the loan will be not considered as defaulted or in arrears, but will still be considered as active because the as current, because the delay does not mean the agreement on delay does not mean that the loan itself is non-performing. So yeah, these are two main news that we have been working on. Also, we have released our update about all our loan originators, and we will continue to do it on a regular basis. Please make sure to visit our blog. I think we will post the link to our blog in the below this video, so take a look there. And yeah, so that's more or less what I wanted to share as a starter from the VIVENTOR side. And now maybe let's move to our guests today. Maybe let's start with you, Björn, as our volunteer investor to join us. Thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this discussion. I really appreciate it. I know that you have been investing with VIVENTOR for more than a year, right? And yeah. I think you are invested into other platforms as well. Maybe you can tell us a bit about your background, what do you do, and how you decided to invest, what asset classes you invest in, and how did you come to the idea to invest into peer-to-peer? So yeah.
Thank you for having me. My name is Björn. I'm 30 years old. I'm a software developer from Germany. Before I came to P2P, I was invested into the crypto market in 2017. Especially ICOs, so I know a lot about scams and a lot about running risks and unregulated markets. But I wanted to do something a little bit different because I lost there a lot of money, and I think you can have a high return combined with little less risk than these ICOs. That's why I found a blog for us German investors. It's it's by Lars Robbel. Who is also invested in a lot of peer-to-peer platforms and is very active here in Germany, initiates peer-to-peer community meetings. And I read some reviews about platforms where he is invested. So that's why I also tried it. I began with a German platform called Capilendo in June 2018. And in July and August, I begin with the big ones like Mintos, Bondora, and Estate Guru. And I joined VIVENTOR in September 2018. I was very pleased with this platform because I think you have a really good support, and I had no issues with the deposits, with withdrawals, with investments, and I think you really have good returns, and that's why I keep there and raised my investments to for me a big sum now. Yeah, and that's why I'm also very interesting to join this webcast here together with someone from Kviku, and also see the last webcast with someone from Atlantis Financiers, because I have a high rate invested into these two loan originators, so it's very interesting for me too. Currently, I'm invested into 15 peer-to-peer platforms. Unfortunately, 2 of them are scams. We knew about this in March now, about Monetera and Groupier, but I'm also invested into Crowdestor, Lendy with double N, Bulky State, Reinvest24, Peerberry, Crowdy State, Twino, and Fast Invest. So I also have a big portfolio there. I started with peer-to-peer, but I also wanted to invest in ETFs. I started to get some experience there. So yeah, that is my background.
how do you manage all these 15 platforms? Do you use some kind of technical solution to manage them all, or you log into each one of them individually and make adjustments there separately?
Different. In most of them, I have an auto invest before the crisis. So I checked it every 2 or 3 days, and I have a routine, so a software routine where I can automatically go inside. Not for all, but most of them. And now I switched a little bit while the crisis. So I go more into the secondary market, but only on VIVENTOR and Mintos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you make investments, what main criteria you look at in this peer-to-peer market, at least? And has it changed after the pandemic has been announced?
Yes, a little bit, because before I tried to diversify a lot so that I have some investments in personal loans, also in Immobilien. I'm sorry.
In real estate.
Real estate, thank you. Real estate, and also, so I try to diversify. Now I'm a little bit, I only try to invest into secured car loans and in personal loans, because I think they are really short and they're really small, so that you have a big diversification now.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. So you are continuing investing, also looking into opportunities of secondary market?
Unfortunately, not in all platforms, like these scams before. And I also tried now to concentrate a little bit more on the big ones and yours.
Okay. Perhaps we will also become a big one day.
Hopefully, I'm with you. It's a pity sometimes that that VIVENTOR is not one of these 3, but you become.
Well, we have ambitions, so maybe it will turn out. So who knows? So thank you very much, and maybe now I will turn to you, Nikita. Tell us a bit about yourself. What is your background, and how did you decide to start running the lending business, and how has it been going so far up until, let's say, March, and how are you dealing with the crisis right now?
Yes, Andrius, thanks for having me. I apologize in advance for bad connection. I've been stuck outside of Moscow in my home 50 kilometers away during the quarantine time. So
yeah, understandable.
Yeah, but we're still working. So yeah, with regards to background, I myself and my second partner, co-founder, we started this business back in 2013. So it's been already 7 years. We got the license from the central bank in Russia. It's a quasi-banking license, which allows us to attract deposits from retail. So it's kind of a full-blown bank, but with a smaller balance sheet. So we have been traditionally focused on loans. And these are loans by some other services over the internet. For example, you can buy an iPhone using our loan on any big website in Russia. You could have bought air tickets before the current crisis. and stuff like that. So for primary new clients, we allow only point of sale loans, and if the client performs well and he repays the loan on time, we allow him to use a so-called installment loan. This is a cash loan which we issue to his debit card or a bank account. So our business model is a bit different from traditional PDL companies or installment loan companies. We first use the point of sale product in order to test the client and to make sure he is a good one. And obviously the default rates in point of sale is much less than traditional lending, because other than buy a good or service, the client cannot use the loan anyhow. So it's a quasi secured loan which is used to buy some stuff or goods. With regards to my own background, so as I said, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kviku. I have previously worked for 10 years in investment banking. One of my last employers was Morgan Stanley investment banking, so I used to work in Eurobonds issuing and derivatives departments. So before starting Kviku, I've learned quite a lot about funding and financing of corporates, governments, and then we together with an online background and some banking to launch our own business. So that's how we've been doing so far. And just to summarize the introduction, Russia remains our main asset in the portfolio at the moment. So about 80% of all loans are issued from Russia, but we have also launched over the previous 2 years Kazakhstan, Poland, Spain, and in January we have received a license in the Philippines. So we're kind of growing not only in our home region but also outside of it.
Do you have any plans on discussing putting those loans on VIVENTOR as well in the new markets?
I think so. Yeah. Well, currently we are growing in these markets on our own equity, own shareholder funds. So we do not attract debt to these to these countries. But there are some countries like Kazakhstan and Spain where we have reached profitability. So we may once the current turmoil ends, and we hope that it will and sooner rather than later, we may consider putting our loans from other countries onto VIVENTOR as well.
Also, talking about the recent effect on coronavirus on some loan originators, I think due to quarantine, I think the biggest impact wasn't for those loan originators who had a lot of physical stores and physical offices to disburse the cash. And how was your situation in this area? How did it affect your sales, and in what way?
Well, look, I've spent 10 years in the office, and when we started this business, one of the key distinguishing points was to allow all our employees to work from homes. So we've been working like in this quarantine mode, I'd say, for 7 years. So we only had like back office assistants in our office, and we used it for meetings with investors and with partners. But all other employees, which the number of whom is currently 50, they all work from home from different countries. So like quarantine measures haven't affected us at all. And obviously we've never issued any offline loans. Like we only worked on the internet. All the point of sale loans were only on websites, so that didn't affect us at all. Moreover, we're currently seeing a huge increase in demand in Russia because banks are all closed. We only had like 1 or 2 private banks which allowed to issue credit cards not fully online, but using a courier who delivered the card to your flat. All other banks are required to visit their office to sign a paper agreement. So currently for them, it's a real mess. And we see increased demand for our loans at the moment. We see lots of banking clients applying for a loan at this point of time, because we see that the credit history is much better than before. But at the same time, we are full understanding that the default rates might rise if the situation continues for a prolonged period of time. So let's say currently we do not see any increase in NPL rates, but if the quarantine measures in Russia continue for another 1 or 2 months, we'll certainly see the default rates climbing. But taking that into account, we have already decreased substantially the credit limits for new clients, so we cut it almost twice. And for clients, the best of the best at the moment. So in order not to end up with increased default.
Did you have any, let's say, formal requests from the Russian government to implement delays for your customers in repayments, or is it case-by-case basis so far? What's the situation there?
Yes, we had an announcement from the president basically last Monday, a week ago. He told that there would be a prolongations allowed for borrowers upon request up to 6 months, and the necessary condition would be that the income of the borrower declines by over 30%. So that was a kind of that's a law now. It's a law now, but it's not for all borrowers. It's only for those who apply to our call center or by email and ask for a prolongation. And we must meet these criteria. Yes, these are for all loans that were issued before the end of March.
And after this Monday's release, it was last Monday, yes? Not yesterday?
Yes,
so,
last Monday.
So how did you see an increase in these requests? Were there many of them, or what's the proportion, so to say, for us to imagine the scope?
Well, I mean, to give you a number, we are issuing about 2,000 loans each day. That's before the crisis. And we're currently seeing on a daily basis about 50 to 100 requests for prolongations. Obviously, we expect that this number may grow in the future. I'm monitoring that once the quarantine measures are put off, we'll see people getting back to their jobs, and we hope that by the end of April, these requests will not vanish at all, but certainly decrease the amount of these requests.
Okay. Thank you guys for the introduction. Maybe now it's time to go to the questions from investors that we had quite a few again. Thank you for them. And we can go through the questions, and if there will be some questions that Björn, I know that you asked some questions yourself on the Slido, but if there are some more that you would like to ask myself or Nikita here, so feel free. But then let's go to the first to the question list, and let's grab the first one and let's roll. Okay, Renee is asking, is it possible that you stop withdrawals of investors' funds emergency case to protect VIVENTOR from bankruptcy? I think it is related, this question is related to how our platform was performing with withdrawals recently, and multiple times we answered that already. I can answer once again here that we implemented funds in transit functionality last week, and after the implementation of this functionality, there were some loan originators who still had pending settlements to pay, because before implementing this functionality, we did not have a precondition that the settlement has to be made so that funds are available for investors. And when it happened, and we still have, as I said in the beginning, quite a few withdrawals happening, people are still withdrawing from the platform, unfortunately, we have to wait for the funds from loan originators to arrive so that we can make those withdrawals. I think in a few days from now, we will be settled completely all the balances that were still due before the implementation of this feature. And after that, when the funds of the loan originators will not arrive on the platform, investors will not be able to withdraw them because they will be shown as funds in transit. So basically, it means that we are not stopping the withdrawals, but we simply don't have anything to give you to withdraw until the funds from the loan originators are coming. And for the platform to be bankrupt from it is not related, as I see it, because the funds of investors and the funds of the loan originators are kept off balance from VIVENTOR. We do not account them as our property or as our cash flow. It's not our company's money. It is the money that we just manage on behalf of investors by transferring them to loan originators, and on behalf of loan originators by transferring them to investors. So whatever happens on this account, it does not affect the performance or how to say performance of being able to pay by the company of VIVENTOR. So the only way that VIVENTOR could go into bankruptcy as a company is if we would be not able to pay to our providers, suppliers for rent, for salaries, etc. And so far from our revenue and from our shareholders, we have the commitment and support, and we don't see it happening right now. Björn, maybe you want to follow up on that, or you have some more related question to this thing?
To this one, no, that question was from René. So
yeah, I know, but maybe since you're also an investor, maybe that's something that has been bothering you, or
because I understand you are the interface between the loan originator and the investor. So I think that would be more on the side of the loan originator. So the one who wants to have the loan. So I completely understand that.
Okay, cool. Okay, guys, so let's move to the other questions. I think we can tick the first one off. Yep. Are there any plans to apply for a license with the Latvian regulator, Financial and Capital Market Commission, FCMC? René is asking again. Thank you, René, for this question. Yes, VIVENTOR is not only planning, but has already applied for a license of a financial brokerage company in Latvia under the supervision of FCMC, and after the implementation of the license, we will be trading in securitized assets, meaning that the claim rights that the investors are buying on the platform will be actual securities. We'll have proper documentation and recordings of them done, but not only by us as a company, but also submitted to the commission for review and approval. And all loan originators will have to also be approved and assigned to be allowed to issue these instruments through VIVENTOR as a financial brokerage company. In the longer future period, we have even plans to be able to trade these instruments on other financial brokerage companies who would be connected to Nasdaq Baltic Stock Exchange. And so, but as a first step, we will be only trading them amongst ourselves. The good thing is that according to our current submission of the way that we are seeing this moving forward as a business model and as a flow for investors, it shouldn't change dramatically. There might be some minor technical changes. Maybe we will, not maybe, but for sure we will need to present more information about the security you are investing, and to comply with MiFID requirements and AML requirements of the European Union. So that basically means that investors will have to be informed, and both informed and checked by us as a company if they are qualified enough to make these investments. So there will be some questionnaires that investors will need to complete, some updates that they will need to do to make sure that they understand the risks that they are taking, and that this investment is right for them. So as most of our investors that we know are investing quite high amounts and are invested with other platforms as well, so they could definitely be considered as more on the professional investor side. So I think for most of you, it shouldn't be too much problem. For the rest, I hope also that these these questionnaires and these processes that we will implement will only serve as a increased security and increased trust into the platform. Because as an investor, if I wouldn't know anything and I would be choosing one platform or another, for me, one of the I don't know, critical things that I would like to see would be that the platform is actually licensed, and that it has a government supervisor that is looking at the activities of the platform, and that it has been approved by the regulator to do it. So that is the main reason we are doing that, and we think that our strategy has always been to bring more stability and transparency for investors, and I think this will be just one step forward in that direction.
Mm-hmm. So you try to change from, let's say, an unregulated market to a regulated market, and to increase a little bit the safety and the trust into the platform. Is it right?
Yeah, that's true. And these platforms, this business model is not like old one. It is not a new one. It has been around for 4 or 5 years, right? And in general, this business, in my opinion, should be regulated, because it is a trading of securities. And when you're trading of securities, you have to be regulated, because the regulation means protection of investors. So unregulated business has a possibility to go maybe beyond some line that should be presented as the line of no crossing, and we want to make sure that we are always there, and that our investors are also interests of our investors are also secure, because of course these platforms are competing against each other in terms of interest rates and returns, but I think the returns on all of these peer-to-peer platforms that you can choose from, and you as you say, Björn, you can choose from quite a few right now. I think the interest rate is only one of the factors where you are choosing, especially after the scams you mentioned. And it's not only, it can not only be a scam, it can be just a mismanagement of business, on another side. So trust in the platform and trust that your investments will return the interest in the long run should be also one of the major considerations for investors. So our strategy is both to ensure good returns for investors, but also, and most important, to ensure trust and stability of the platform for our investors.
You see it. I'm also invested in Monetera, which had much more return, but was a scam. Yeah, I was also invested into Crowdestor, but they also have the problems that they have business loans, so they have to cut it now that they won't give any repayments for 3 months, I think, and they tried to begin with it at the end of June, I think. So you see, it's not always the return. It's then that you see, okay, I'm now invested in VIVENTOR for 1.5 years. I had no issues all the time, and then that's why I also wanted to go with you through this crisis now. So you are completely right. And I think what is also very good that you do something like this webcast here. So one can see you all the time and see also Kviku and someone from Atlantis Financiers. So you really have the possibility to see them, to ask questions, and yeah, we are all in one boat then, right?
Yes,
like
of
we said
course.
last week.
Thank you very much for this. That means that what our strategy is the right one, at least for the type of investor that you are. And of course, there are maybe many types of people who are just willing to speculate on high returns. But I would like to have mostly those people who are here for high returns, but also for some, at
But
least
it's
some
different.
country stability. Yeah.
It's different. You see, there's also a lot of investors which go into Bondora Go and Grow with 6.75%. So it's completely different because you have someone who came from the crypto market like me. So for me, it's like 10% is nothing, you know. It's Tuesday morning, so so and in other ones who really tries to get from a secured market to something like a peer-to-peer. So they are a little bit afraid when they see 12%, 13%. So they say, okay, that can't be right, and that's why I tried to go into these investments with small budget and see when it grows, and then I can increase. So, and that was, I think, VIVENTOR was here a very good example.
Okay, maybe we can also ask Nikita here. Nikita, you are funding from VIVENTOR also for a while already, and what other methods of funding your business besides peer-to-peer have you considered, tried? What is your experience with other methods? How well is your portfolio leveraged? How in general you see the industry of peer-to-peer market right now?
Well, yeah, right. We have about half of our liabilities funded through P2P platforms. So we work with probably 2 or 3 largest ones in Europe, including VIVENTOR, Mintos, Monster as well. Then we also have, as I said in the beginning, we have a license that allows us to attract funds from the street, from retail, just like a normal bank in Russia. So we have a portfolio of probably 30% of the liabilities, which are deposits from retail. So these are deposits up to 3 years. They are 90%, even I think 95% of them are ruble denominated. And the rates there are on average about 20%. These are rates in ruble, which is like a normal rate for an online lender with a license in Russia to have it in rubles. And then another 20%, and we are currently actually growing this share now, are also long-term loans from our Asian investors. These are denominated also majority 80% in rubles. These are 2-year loans from our Asian partners, which we see have managed to cope with the virus pretty well. So most of the businesses in China, for example, are reopening now, and so far we haven't seen any decrease in the demand from Asian investors, and this is probably due to the fact that the savings, for example, in Japan are very high, and the interest rates there are, I would say, negative. You have to pay to your bank in order to keep a deposit there. So when they see a double-digit interest rate, they obviously have very high demand for loans like ours. So this is pretty much it. And we also have shareholders' equity, which is currently about 200 million rubles, which is like about 3 million euros. Again, we are obliged to keep the equity not lower than 1 million euro as per the regulator. So it's currently well above. We have a certain cash cushion of about 2.5 million euros on our bank account. So we feel pretty comfortable currently, and we expect that. As I've said, sooner rather than later, this situation will restore, and we'll see the demand restoring in European P2P platforms as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you, guys. Let's switch back to the questions and see what's the next one.
I guess it's my one. Can I ask myself?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
So I tried to give you both some questions. That's why I'm writing to Kviku or to you, Andrius, or to both in this case. And as I said before, a big thing for me personally, it is that we know now 2 more scams from March from the Baltics, like Copier and Monetera. I think it was also Kutzal and InvestU before. So there are the number of scams will increase right now, and I only wanted to ask you what do you think of it, because I think it's not good for also for the loan originator as the platform that you have the peer-to-peer platform, which were attacked by these scams. And as I said, as I see, let's say 2 or 3 hours ago, that Ibanka had a statement and said we want to say that we have these loans, and these loans are working, and we are trying to contact Groupier, but nobody is there. And I think that's also a really bad situation for loan originators. You can ask Ibanka and for the next webcast, I think. What do you think about it?
So is it the question to myself or to
you, Andrius, and also to Nick, because I think they are attacking both of you, like loan originator and the platform.
Okay, so I can start. You know, as this is an ongoing thing right now, I wouldn't want to you know say something that is inappropriate right now, but what I can say in general is that we discussed it even a while ago, that this industry is new, and I'm also present in these Facebook groups where discussions are happening, and I'm following them and sometimes answering when it concerns our company. I'm also invested into some of the platforms with small amounts, just to you know to continue monitoring on the development and to know what is happening there. But what we see is that this industry is still young and fragile. I mean, it hasn't shown long-time performance. Let's say that as banks can boast that we have 100 years experience and we will solve this, that we solved many crises before. So even in the good times, this whole industry is as good as its weakest link. You know, it's investors' trust is very important. You know, we previously, as an example, just for you, previously we announced that this webcast would be done and released. I think it was for yesterday, but then we besides between ourselves agreed to do it today because of just logistical reasons. And we already received a question from one of our investor. Is something already wrong with Kviku so that you decided to postpone and terminate this this webcast? So I mean, this just shows that investors are in general on the edge right now, and every small thing can be perceived wrongly, so we have to communicate as much as possible. So of course these things that are happening with the platforms and are not helping the rest of us in any way. I would definitely prefer to have strong and clear competitors with whom we can develop and continue working in this industry, but we have what we have, so let's see how it rolls out. I really just do hope that what we are doing now and how we are doing our business in general is understood and without doubt understood by our investors as true as it is. So that's the only thing I can hope for right now.
Was you do you were invested into one of these 4 platforms, or in these 2 last ones?
So let's just say, since I'm a biased person, let's just say that I'm invested with insignificant, absolutely amounts into many platforms, probably most of them, just for purely educational purposes and as fast as possible. I'm not as a professional investor into these platforms myself. I have I don't think that would be even ethical from my side. So so yeah, just from my side like that, as an investor, it's insignificant amounts. And then probably the question moves to Nikita here. Do you have some comments on the last developments of these unfortunate events with some of the platforms in our industry?
Well, obviously, we bear reputational risks as well as a loan originator. We're also exposed to risks of discontinued operations from our P2P platforms partners. More, I can say that we used to work with one of the platforms. I will not mention the name on this webcast, but over a year ago we used to work with them. Our experience was like about a month and a half. We received a couple of tranches below 100 euros, 100,000 euros. And then we decided to stop our cooperation, and as we saw some red flags and didn't want to expose ourselves to any reputational risks associated with future operation of the platform. So yes, we monitor the groups and forums on Facebook, and we know about the recent. I wouldn't want to call it scams, because obviously it's until you have some legal action taken, you cannot call it a scam. It could be a mismanagement or some force majeure, whatever. But we see that platforms are really defaulting, and obviously this is for us also a bad sign, because investors are usually diversified, so they can invest up to 5, 10, 15 platforms, as mentioned by colleagues earlier. And when 1 or 2 default, obviously the investor gets hit, and he starts withdrawing money from platforms which perform well at the moment. So of course for us it's an outflow of funds, and it's kind of lose-lose situation for everybody. So the only cure from this is obviously regulation. So as Andrius mentioned, it would be a good step for VIVENTOR to get some kind of license in the coming months, because I mean, we've been regulated for 7 years. It's a headache, but it's also good for your attractiveness in front of investors, because when they know that someone is visiting your office every year, but by some government official department, then they feel safer. So it's not a 100% indication that the business will continue going on for 10 or 20 years. There might be some troubles with anything, but when you're regulated, then this means that you try not to cross the line that Andrius mentioned earlier. So you know that you will have probably some consequences after that.
And Nikita, do you have any chances to find out which platform is perhaps not so good and good for you as a loan originator to place your loans? Do you have any, let's say, task or something you can do so that you can say, okay, this platform would be better for us, or this wouldn't be so great?
Well, I mean, obviously, currently there aren't, as far as I know, in Europe, there aren't any regulated platforms. So we first of all try to digest by the way the company performs due diligence, first of all. So whether it's us who are approaching this platform first, or they are approaching us to add on their platform, we look at the way they do due diligence. We look at their agreements, because I can tell you all the agreements that we have are monitored by the central bank. They are perfectly aware of all our funding channels, the volumes, the rates, the terms, everything. They have all these agreements in front of them. So if we send some agreement that we believe that is not in the best interest of our investors or ourselves, we would probably just pass on to and not start our cooperation with this platform. But again, even for us, we're an experienced player, but sometimes it's not obvious that whether this platform actually will discontinue its operations. It's again really hard to judge unless you are being regulated by the government.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Do you keep individual investors' money separate? If no, do you plan to start doing this, and when? I think we can keep the screen on because it's a very short answer from me. So we keep investors' money in a separate account, in a separate institution. We keep it off balance. And yeah, so I already, I think, answered that question last time, but yeah, just again, repeating.
Okay, the next one is for me. In webcast number 1, Andrius told us Kviku get the money from the borrower in Russian rubles and converts it into euros. Which impact does that have for you? Because last time they told us when you convert it, you will lose some money because the Russian ruble is very volatile, and that's why I wanted to ask you whether this has a bad or a good impact right now for you. And yeah.
Yes, thank you for the question. Well, the situation is the following. Yes, we issue loans in rubles and we get repayments in rubles as well. We do have funding in euros. So, for example, at VIVENTOR, all of our funding portfolio is denominated in euros. But that's not the case like with Mintos or with Asian investors, obviously with retail deposits. So obviously, if we look at our liabilities, 80% of them are denominated in rubles, 20 are in euros. But yes, we bear the FX risk. So what this means that, for example, if you look at the euro rate for us, like in normal circumstance, it's about 12% in euro and 20%, as I mentioned, in rubles. So the difference is 8%. This 8% is obviously the so-called spread for the currency risk. So again, if you take into account the 2019 year, ruble was the second best currency that appreciated the most in the whole emerging markets. So when we had funding in euros in 2019, ruble appreciated against the euro, and we actually ended up not only funding at a lower rate at 10 to 12%, but also we had an FX gain because of this appreciation. Now what we see in 2020 is that ruble indeed depreciated about 12%. So currently it's about 82 to euro, rubles to euro, and the average for 2019 was about 73. So it's about 12% depreciation. But as I said, we when funding in euros, we have an 8% lower interest rate. So this partially covers the loss that we currently have in first quarter. And on the other side, we use a so-called natural hedge, which means that all our profits and excess cash that we have on the bank accounts are kept in hard currency. So from 2.5 million euros that I mentioned of cash currently on accounts, 2 million are in hard currency. So it's euros and it's US dollars. And the rest is in rubles for our daily operations in Russia. But so this is a natural hedge. Basically, if ruble even depreciates further, we still have euros to cover our liabilities, which we have with VIVENTOR and with Mintos. So that's basically how it works. Hope that's clear.
Very interesting.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
completely, in a very, very interesting way, because I did not know that before. In the last webcast, I heard it that there's an issue because I come from Germany, so I always think in euros, but yeah, in other countries we have this issue in converting.
Yeah, so far on VIVENTOR, all our loans are denominated in euros, and the currency risk is always on the side of the loan originator if they are from a non-euro country, and of course also on investor if they are also from a non-euro country.
Because I think on Twino it was that you can also get into loans into rubles or in other currencies. I also think that this is working in Mintos, right? So that would be a question, Nikita. Is it correct that you can also, or me as an investor can also invest into loans on Mintos in the right currency? Is it correct? Also,
yes,
not in the right in Russian ruble. I'm sorry. Oh.
Yes, we have the majority of our funding on Mintos denominated in rubles. Yes, that's correct. And the rates, as I've said, are obviously higher, so it's about 20% plus.
Because the risk is then on the investor side, right?
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah,
yes,
okay, I understand. That is also a discussion for investors, like also in some podcasts, and there are some risky investors who will try this, but most of them, they said keep it in euros, so that the investor has.
Well, I mean, it's kind of your feeling about the currency at this current given point of time, because as I said, the last year, if you were to invest in rubles on, for example, Mintos or any other platform that allows, you would get 20% interest annually, and you would also receive a about 5 to 6% appreciation against euro.
Mm-hmm.
So ruble was performing really well last year, so that's why we had a significant demand from investors and from us last year.
And that would be completely different because when you are a Russian investor, then you always try to invest in rubles, right? So I think that matters from where you come from.
Yeah, the deposits that we have from Russian retail investors are 95% denominated in rubles, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, guys, let's move on.
Mm-hmm. I think there will be also now some questions that already been answered before. So
yeah, so let's see. Yeah, Björn.
This one is an interesting one because this week is not correct. Last week, Mintos introduced a new fee. I think they want to introduce it on the 13th of April for secondary market, which has to be paid by the seller and is 0.85% of the selling price. And my question to you, Andrius, is do you plan that too?
Currently, all of our platform is completely free of charge, and it is for investors. And our business model is that we get a margin on top of the borrowing rate of the lender who is borrowing money from investors on the platform. So our customer is with whom we have let's say invoicing is the loan originator in this case. So and that is probably due to how this peer-to-peer market has come to operate and what are the market rules here. I think that it's hard to find a platform in peer-to-peer industry that would be charging investors for anything. But so far we aim to keep it that way. We don't see that it should be necessary to implement any extra fees for investors. Of course, there are some nice things that we would like to add to the platform and what investors would be really satisfied with, but they are quite expensive. And maybe for these extra things, we would implement a fee to compensate for it. For example, possibility to top up your account by making a card transaction. So, currently the only possibility is to make a bank payment like SEPA transfer, which is free or nearly free to process, but it takes a few hours. Or if you are transferring from a non-euro area, like for example Sweden or Poland or Denmark, then it can take up to 1 day even. And sometimes investors just want to invest and want to top up their account right now and make a decision right now. So card payment would be a good idea to do it. But online card payments cost quite a lot. The lowest rate that I have heard of was about, I think, 1.5% from the transaction. So like if we introduced an option for an investor to transfer some money to withdraw to a VIVENTOR account, but not via SEPA payment, but through card payment, and this option would be paid would cost approximately the same as we would pay for the processing of this transaction, then I think it would make sense to implement such extra benefit fees for investors. So maybe something like that we will consider, but for current services of the platform, we don't see in the nearest future that we will be implementing any new fees.
Mm-hmm. Because I think they were asking or that they will do it on Mintos because they want that the people who go now from auto invest or from primary market to secondary market, they want to bring them back to primary market to when they have a fee. This is the one thing I think, and the second thing is that they can build a little bit money for if the coronavirus would be in the longer term a big issue. I think that would be the two issues here where they want to do it.
Yeah, so that's true and correct thinking. Business logic is correct. I mean, so far, if you look at the primary market and secondary market, the primary market is the place where we as a company earn revenue from the loan originators when the investments are made there. And secondary market is kept basically as a liquidity solution for those investors who want to withdraw their money ahead of time for one reason or another.
Then
this
you had the
is
possibility to also get some money over the secondary.
yeah. So it's a real possibility, and there are many ways how to do it. It could be, let's say, also applying the same logic as we apply on the loan originator side, that any discount that, for example, that you would be willing to give, we could then add our fee on top of that, and you would earn as well as much as you want to earn, but we would still get some profit from the trade based on the sale. So also point of consideration, but so far, as I said, in the nearest future, let's say nearest months, there is no we are not considering to implement this right now, so we are keeping it as it is for now. So, but who knows what the situation will bring, how the markets will react, how this whole situation will roll out. So I cannot guarantee for sure, but let's say in the nearest months there shouldn't be any new fees for investors on the platform that are affecting immediately their operations. Only maybe those new features that we add might be priced, like card payments or stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Next question.
Yeah, that would be also an interesting one, I think, for Nikita. Since Corona crisis, do you see any changes in behavior of borrowers? So is the amount rise? Do you think they take more risk? I think you also answered some question of it, but I want to see if there's any change of the borrowers. So do they need different loan types, right? And yeah, that is my question to you.
Yes, well, we see increased demand for online lending. So people are stuck at home all over the country. They cannot attend banks, and that's a good thing for us, because I think people are starting to learn about online lending products, because I mean, in Russia, traditional banking with offices had a very high share in the lending markets. It was like 98% of the whole portfolio of loans were issued by traditional banks. Just 2% came to online lenders like us. So I think it's a good time for us to kind of embrace people to take online loans, and we're seeing that the demand and for higher credit limits is also there, because obviously banks are usually not working with microloans like ours. They start lending at around 500 euros, because otherwise their unit economics won't just work, because they have to pay rent, they have to do all this offline papers and stuff like that. We can work with loans starting from 50 or 100 euros. So for us, it's a rather question of whether we want to keep or increase the limits at this point of time or not. But as I said in the beginning, we're taking a conservative approach at the moment. We cut the limits for new clients because we do not know how the default rates will perform in the future. We want to make sure that we pass this turmoil with positive bottom line. So I think, as I said, the behavior of borrowers is moving from offline to online. We see increased demand. And we also are ready to accept requests for prolongations, because quite a few people had their own businesses in Russia, especially in Moscow, and those businesses were mostly of offline nature. So they are closed now, and probably people will have a decrease of their income in the coming months. So we will have to accept prolongations for this type of borrowers as well.
So you see it as a chance to get more into focus for borrowers. Is it correct?
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity. I mean, it's like I don't know, it's like delivery services at the moment. They are skyrocketing because everyone orders food off online. I mean, after this crisis, probably people who ordered something online will get so used to this process that they will stick to it going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for us, it's. I mean, maybe I'm a bit optimistic, but I think it's a good opportunity for us going forward because people will learn more about online lenders like us, and our share will increase in the future.
Yeah, we also discussed that back here in Lithuania, that a lot of businesses and consumers, even those who are, let's say, of older age and now are forced to start learning on how to order things online, and I think many of them will see that it's not so bad as they thought before, and will maybe build a positive behavior to do stuff modern way, how the rest of the community is doing it. So maybe it will turn out good for those companies that are looking forward to doing business online, including lenders as well.
I totally agree because in my family it would become more and more interesting to offer things from the internet. And I think they get also a little bit more open-minded about what I am doing or other investors are doing. I think it would be more common in the future. Something also to like peer-to-peer investments or something, which is completely online. That is the advantage for you now, that you can keep your business running even now. I heard it in the last webcast. You told us that for you it's a little bit different now, that because you have to do everything from home, but it's possible, right? And yeah, let's see.
Yeah, sure, it's possible, and also it's of course when some things change, for some people it's good, for some people it's not so good. Like we also were discussing inside our organization that maybe for companies that rent big office spaces, it also might be bad outlook for the future, because many people will understand that working from home is really okay, and you don't need to build big offices to have a lot of people sitting in the same place, especially with all the traffic and when before the pandemic, for example, some employees would need to take about 40 minutes to 1 hour to travel to work and then back home. So maybe it is completely okay for them to continue working from home. Like Nikita said, you already implemented that type of working for 4 or so years, yes? So it's not no news for you.
7 years from
7
home.
years. So yeah, so it's no news for you. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next question.
In webcast number 1, Andrius told us you have cash reserves. This is for Nikita. Do you have already have losses? If so, what do you think? How long can you survive? I think at the beginning you told us that you have something like 2.5 or 3 million euros or rubles. I don't know in which currency. So you said you feel right now very comfortable. But I think the second question I can ask. What do you think? How long can you survive with the situation like it is right now?
Well, I mean, the answer is pretty simple. If our duration of our assets, our loans on average is 6 months. So if we stop receiving any funding from all our sources, from all retail and institutional investors, we will survive as long as our portfolio is performing. So it's on average 6 months. That's when all the loans will be repaid, and so that's in 2 words, it's 6 months.
Okay. Do we have the possibility to get also some benefits from the government? Because in Germany it is so that we have now a lot of I think 156 billions for all little companies or middle companies, and they bring it to them that they can survive as long as it is necessary. Is there something similar in Russia?
I think, I mean, it's a hard question. Obviously, the central bank is already helping banks with the traditional license. So they have a list of banks that they would support in any crisis situation. They have already started to issue close to 0% loans to these banks so that they can on lend this money to businesses at I think 4% rate in rubles, which is very low. So maybe we will get some access to banking funding. We actually had credit lines agreed with the banks in previously. But banks usually ask very strict covenants when they allow you to borrow money. So we decided not to utilize these credit lines. But I think that if the situation continues, there might be some steps towards online lenders from the central bank as well. I wouldn't rate this possibility as very high. But there might be a chance.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, let's move on. One more question from Björn.
Yes. It's just a short one, because do you think that there are some changes to the first webcast? Because then we said Corona crisis will be something around 3 months. Then it could be that it become better and better. Do you think that were any changes in the last 2 weeks so that you would change your answer?
I wouldn't change my answer just yet. I think we are on a same path that we expected it to be, and we see that some cases in the older Europe are already on a decline, and that I talked with a few loan originators recently myself. They confirmed that some of the borrowers that were borrowing money before the crisis and now have to return it in installments are now many of them are people who are just now sitting at home with nowhere to go and basically nowhere to spend money, and the consuming of anything has declined. There is no possibility to travel, there is no possibility to go for a longer period outside right now, so whatever you buy is just some things and stuff at the use at home. So even the consuming has decreased, and people are even considering and are repaying some of the older repayments in ahead of time. So but of course this will be on a shorter run until, if this crisis will continue for a longer than everybody anticipates, these people will end up having no income again in the future, and it will turn out even worse than it is now. So of course it's obvious that nobody nor we nor lenders nor even you as investors or your or employees will be able to continue working like that for an indefinite period of time. It has to end sooner the better. So I still hope that we are facing like, let's say, we're nearing the end of this crisis. At least, for example, in Lithuania, our government already said that after Easter, which is next Sunday and Monday, there might be already some lifting to the level of quarantine in the country. So, but not completely, but at least somewhat. Maybe something like that will happen also in other countries as well. So who knows? I'm not a demographics expert, but my hopes are that it will end sooner. So
Okay, I think not. I have a different opinion because
Okay.
it could be good if some parts of the economy will be opened, yeah, and that you can do some little more things more. But I think until it is like before the crisis, this will take years. I think 1 or 2 years because the problem is that we need a vaccine. I don't know if this is correctly spelled or pronounced. Um, because before it would take so much time until everybody had this issue, and yeah, that's why I think it took a little bit longer than just after Easter. But let's see.
What I meant maybe is that I believe that the quarantine levels will be removed, but of course the behavior of people and the economies will take a long time to get back to the way they were before. And I read even an article that says that the whole generation has been affected for the lifetime in the future. So maybe physical contact with strangers will not be so favored as it was before, or crowding in big areas. So some behaviors will definitely be changed, but yeah, this is how life is, and we just have to continue living it.
I really hope that the situation will get much better in the next 6 months, so that Nikita will also have some some possibilities more to get to work.
Yeah, I think the whole industry hopes that.
Yeah. Okay. So next one. Nikita, do you want to add something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, from pandemic perspective, I think these things will get better by the summer, definitely. I mean, that's my personal gut feeling. With regards to economics, I think it will take a couple of quarters to restore. So I would agree with you that we will have some sort of recession, definitely, because when you stop production or you stop businesses for a month, that will have a severe effect on the economy.
Okay. Let's see. Yes, this was also already been answered by Andrius. To both, are you personally or institutionally invested in other peer-to-peer platforms like, and I mentioned the big ones, Bondora, Mintos, and the State Guru? You said Andrius, I think you told me that you are a little bit in it, some small budgets only to see whether this is working and stuff like that. And Nikita, is it? Are you also invested into personally, or just to check for as a loan originator where you can go into the future and to which platform?
Well, I mean, institutionally, we keep all our spare cash in the most liquid asset, which is cash. So institutionally, we do not invest in any assets. Personally, I had a try in Russia. We had a couple of P2P platforms 2 or 3 years ago, but break even and closed. So currently we have some sort of local regulation going on, discussions how to regulate the P2P platforms by the central bank. So I don't know any single P2P platform in Russia which exists at the moment. And with regards to Mintos, VIVENTOR, and others, I'm not sure that they allow Russian citizens to process the email and to invest in the loans. I might be mistaken, but I think a couple of years ago that was the case.
At least in VIVENTOR, we accept investors from Russia and from many countries. There is just a list of I think it is about 10 or 12 countries that are considered as red flagged countries like North Korea and stuff like that, where we cannot accept investments from. But generally, and we have investors from Russia, from even United States, from Australia, so it's a wide range. But of course, our general population is from the continental Europe at the moment.
Then I should give you a try, guys.
Please yeah, please. That would be great, I think.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's move on. We have a few questions left.
I think two, right?
Yep.
That are not for me, but I can read it if you want.
Yeah,
do you plan technical improvement in your platform?
So that's probably a question to myself. So yes, we do have several plans in place. We had, you know, had to a little bit reshuffle our pipeline of releases because we needed to release these fixes to stabilize the cash flow of the platform with loan extensions and the pending payments of funds in transit functionality that we have implemented. We also are working on other features at the moment. One of them is related to us getting the license that I mentioned previously. So there are some implementations that we have to do on that part, mainly the new onboarding rules for our investors, that they would need to pass this strong customer authentication and conduct proper anti-money laundering regulation requirements, meaning that we would need to understand the source of funds for these investors and also get to know our customers, so comply with KYC procedures as well. Basically the same as you do when you open a bank account, so it will be a similar process for us. Good thing is that we are doing it on the latest technology available, and everything will be done automatically through video identification, and the way we are piloting it right now internally, it takes just a few minutes to pass these procedures for anyone who has a ID card, or if you are in Europe, or a passport, valid passport if you are from outside of Europe. That's one thing. Another thing is we are working also on two-factor authentication, that investors, when you are making an investment or you are logging into the platform, you will have an option to choose that you want to have strong authentication, that to protect yourself from extra cyber attack risks or hijacking risks. Yeah, so we're thinking to use this Google Authenticator, which is free of charge to both the user and us as a platform. And yeah, so there are many more things in our plans, but maybe these few are one of the main that we are focusing on right now. So yeah, so something like that. Also, maybe it's not so much concerning to investors, but more on loan originator side. So one of the plans that we want to do is to get more professional reporting about the performance of the loans on the platform to loan originators, so that you as a loan originator will get some insights about your loans on the platform and how they are performing, what is the demand currently on investor side, so that you could understand what supply you could give to them, so that to get more attractive positions also from loan originators. So because we are a marketplace and we have to work with both lenders, lender companies, and the investors. So we are doing developments on both ends as well. So.
Okay.
And the last question we have, maybe we can also summarize our discussion around this question, because it's like you know, overview. I can start, maybe then we give the word to Björn, and then finally to Nikita. So the way I see it, in a year after, I think even now we see that the number of platforms is decreasing. I hope that the number will not decrease anymore. But what I do hope is that there will be a more stability, more transparency, openness, and clarity about how the platforms work, how this business operates, and what can you expect from it. Because for us as a company, as I said earlier, it is important that the whole industry is stable and investors are not, having many doubts about the industry in general and not just companies. Because first of all, you look at industry, then you look at companies. So that's my hope, and that's how I want to see this going forward. I know that it's not only us that are applying for the license of financial brokerage. I know that at least 3 or 4 other companies that are doing the same, and I hope that all of the industry will be licensed and regulated, and that we will be playing according to the same rules. And this will just mean for us that we are able to attract more investors and to grow in a more stable manner. So that's my vision, and that's how I want to see this company going forward and to see this industry going forward. Yeah. So Björn, how do you see the industry in 1 year?
I totally agree with you, because I think that there were some other platforms, unfortunately, which are a little bit smaller and do not have so much loan originators or so much loans on their platform, because the investors will get some money into shares or into other things, even if to buy stuff on a grocery store. So that's why I would say there will be less, but very trustworthy platforms at the end. So not at the end, but let's see in 1 year. So I think for the peer-to-peer industry, it's a very good sign that that we are not so much increasing number of several ones. So let's see how much will appear in 1 year, because I'm invested in now 13 platforms. Let's see how much it will be in 1 year. Okay, and Nikita, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the key takeaway from my point of view is transparency. So I think that if you look at good times when everything is growing, then people often don't see red flags that arise in front of them, because they see only incomes. When tough times are in the market, people start realizing that not all of the market participants were transparent, and probably in 1 year time, I believe there will be several platforms that will get a license, and they will obviously become more transparent. From Kviku side, we have been traditionally as transparent as possible. You can always find our accounts, audited accounts on our website, as well as investor presentations. So this is something that we got used to over the years of regulation by the central bank. So I think the same path will be processed by the P2P platforms in the coming years, and I think it's definitely a good sign for investors, and probably the best managed and the most transparent platforms will survive the current turmoil, and I believe that VIVENTOR will definitely be one of them.
Great to hear that. So thank you very much for staying with us this whole time. It took a bit longer than we expected, but I think we had a very good discussion. And just to summarize what we discussed today is basically that, yes, we are currently passing a tough time right now. We have not the, let's say, the best times going in the nearest future, but with the right management, with the right attitude, and with the right trust from our investors and from the community, I think we can overcome it together. And I think it is mostly important right now for everyone to stay, to monitor the situation, of course, on a daily basis, but to stay calm and to think logically, not make any, fast, spontaneous decisions. To have, let's say, it's very good that this community of investors has forums where you can discuss with each other and see what's the general mood of the investors is. So I'm really happy that this is so, and I do hope that we as a platform will continue this path together with you and our loan originators here, who have also good reserves and good management and experienced management in the companies, will overcome this pandemic and the financial turmoil it has caused. And to all of you investors who are watching us, thank you very much. If you are watching this video on YouTube, be sure to also follow us on Facebook, because that is the page where we will announce our next webcast. And we will probably also be asking of who you would like to see there and what questions you would like to have there. So feel free to write those in the comments below or on our Facebook page as well. Or feel free to contact us any means comfortable to you. We're always available and always ready to answer your questions. So once again, thank you very much, and see you in the next VIVENTOR webcast. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.